Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we're going to completely shatter a massive myth about leadership. For the longest time, we've all been sold this idea that to get people to respect you, to admire you, and to genuinely want to follow you, you've got to be the smartest person in the room. But what if I told you that being a truly top-tier leader has almost nothing to do with raw intellect? So ask yourself, what do you think truly elevates someone to become a top 1% leader or CEO? You might be picturing someone with an Ivy League MBA, or maybe that person who confidently speaks in super complex business jargon. But the reality of what actually commands respect is so much simpler and, quite frankly, a whole lot more human than you probably think. 100 million. Now, the insights we're unpacking today come directly from Leila Hormozi. She used 5 incredibly counterintuitive rules to go from being a self-admittedly clueless 22-year-old starting her very first business to growing a team of over 100 people, breaking a Guinness World Record, and making over $100 million in just 3 days with her company Acquisition.com. These aren't just nice theories. These are the actual, invisible, battle-tested actions of incredible leadership. Okay, let's jump right in. Rule 1, master emotional regulation. Look, it's incredibly easy to lead when the market's booming, your team is perfectly happy, and everything's stable, right? Literally anyone can do that. True leadership is tested when the pressure is turned all the way up. And it all comes down to a psychological phenomenon called the social contagion effect. Basically, this means that humans naturally mirror the emotional state of their authority figures. Think back to COVID. Tons of businesses went under not just because of the crazy economy, but because the owners couldn't stabilize themselves. A dysregulated leader inevitably creates a dysregulated team. If you are spiraling, well, their performance goes right out the window. To combat this, Leila shared this fantastic strategy from her early gym launch days. She literally stuck a Post-it note right on her computer monitor with just 2 words on it: be neutral. It was just this constant daily reminder that her primary job was to be the rock for everyone else. If she stayed calm, her team stayed calm. But if she showed her stress, the social contagion effect meant they would all start panicking too. Now, there is a super critical distinction we need to make here. Being a rock does not mean acting like some emotionless robot who doesn't feel anything. Actually, scratch that. Trying to do that is just suppression, which is dangerously ignoring and avoiding your feelings. Regulation, on the other hand, is acknowledging those emotions, confronting them head-on, and then actively moving forward toward what you actually value. Leila credits going to a lot of therapy for learning this distinction. You weren't bearing the stress, you're just managing what you do with it. So the big question is, how do you actually execute this in the real world? Well, it breaks down into a highly actionable 3-step framework. Step 1, self-awareness. You have to literally recognize and name the emotion you're feeling in the moment. Step 2, create a buffer. Walk away for 5 minutes, take some deep breaths, and intentionally put time between feeling the emotion and acting on it. And step 3, approach the conflict with a neutral tone. Bring genuine curiosity to the situation instead of just immediately dropping the hammer of judgment. Once you've got that internal emotional stability locked in, you can safely move on to Rule 2, practice sincere candor. Having that internal regulation means you aren't going to just explode when delivering tough feedback. And that creates an environment where your team actually feels safe hearing the truth. Early on in her business partnership with her husband, Alex, a mentor gave them a strict warning. He said that if they had any space between them, meaning, unset expectations or withheld thoughts, the business would completely fail. So what do? They sat down, wrote out all their biggest fears on pieces of paper, and literally handed them to each other. By getting it all out in the open, they created a workspace with absolutely no secrets. It felt transparent, like glass. And that glass feeling is exactly what you want to cultivate with your own team. But you might be wondering, how do you do this without just coming off as mean? Well, it comes down to the vital difference between an insult and a critique. An insult associates someone with a negative past trait, like saying someone is just lazy or always late. That keeps them stuck ruminating on their past failures. A critique, though, is highly productive. It simply identifies the gap between what they are currently doing right now and the future goal they need to hit. It focuses entirely on what to do next. So here are your rapid-fire best practices for pulling off candor effectively. First, you need to state your expectations completely upfront. Then, when someone misses the mark, give them feedback immediately. Be incredibly specific about it, and always critique in private. As we're talking through this, ask yourself right now, is there anything you have been holding back from your team just because you're afraid of having a candid conversation? And if you can master that candor, it naturally leads us right into Rule 3, build unimpeachable character. Because here is a truly fascinating fact. Trustworthiness actually predicts team performance far more accurately than raw competence. Your team needs to trust your character way more than they need to be dazzled by your fancy resume. A mentor once told Leila arguably the most unforgettable piece of advice for any emerging leader. They said, never vent down, you can only vent up. What this means is that, as a leader, you can absolutely never emotionally vomit your stress, your legal issues, or your daily frustrations onto your team. They just can't process it, and worse, it makes them feel like their own jobs are in jeopardy. But listen, you still have to be honest with them. Leila shared this brilliant story about a key employee who left the company abruptly and on pretty bad terms. Instead of venting all her anger onto her team, she just transparently said, hey, I'm feeling a little down because of this departure. I'm feeling a little self-conscious, but I love this team and it has absolutely nothing to do with any of you. That simple vulnerability made her team feel incredibly safe and connected. So put yourself in your team's shoes for a second and ask, would I trust me as a leader? When your team truly trusts you, they can actually hear what you're trying to say. Which brings us to Rule 4, create absolute clarity. During her really massive early growth phases, Leila realized her big meetings were actually leaving her team feeling frantic, totally stressed, and just completely confused. Why? Because while they were discussing these huge, high-level visions, they completely lacked actionable, simple direction for what to actually go do the very next morning. Honestly, nothing destroys clarity faster than corporate nonsense. When leaders stand up there using giant, convoluted words and endless acronyms just to sound smart or intimidating, it completely backfires. Like saying, the EBITDA ROI on the carrot dip. People make fun of corporate speak for a reason, right? It simply doesn't work. It pushes your team away and leaves everyone guessing. So, what is the ultimate clarity hack? Put it in third-grade language. Seriously. Take your complex, high-level objectives and translate them so simply that practically anyone on Earth could understand them. You can literally feed your memos or emails into an app like Hemingway or even just ChatGPT and ask it to rewrite your text at a third-grade reading level. Doing this guarantees that your team instantly knows exactly what needs to be done. And to maintain that hard-won clarity, you've got to limit your team's focus. Research actually shows that people perform at their absolute peak when they have just 1 to 3 clear priorities. That's it. Also, as a leader, you have to actively help your team find their own clarity. When someone walks into your office wanting to talk, proactively ask them, hey, are we trying to solve a problem right now, or do you just need to vent? Guide them right back to clarity. All right, we are pivoting to the ultimate climax of this explainer. Rule 5, the power of ownership. Because here is the really hard truth. Clarity is amazing, but clarity without ownership just leaves a bunch of people sitting around waiting for someone else to give them permission to act. This concept is grounded in a profoundly powerful childhood story from Leila. She was dealing with the intense fallout of a parent's addiction, and as a young girl, she was furious. She told her therapist that her parent caused the problem, so her parent should be the one to fix it. Her therapist looked right at her and delivered a heavy truth. I understand you didn't cause the problem, but you do have to fix it. Man, that is a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? But it is the absolute epitome of true leadership. In business, you are constantly going to face problems that you didn't create. It's just a fact. A weak team operates on centralized responsibility, meaning only the boss is responsible and everyone else just sits around waiting to be told what to do. But a high-performance team, they operate on decentralized responsibility. That means absolutely everyone on the team feels completely empowered to jump in and fix issues the second they see them, regardless of whose fault it was in the first place. If you want to build that kind of team, you have to stop wasting your energy trying to figure out whose fault something is. Skip those grueling 3-hour post-mortem meetings. Stop the blame game entirely. Focus all of your company's collective energy on creating solutions. Leila told this amazing story about a facilities team member who became absolutely indispensable to the company. Why? Because they silently cleaned up a massive mess left by another team without ever asking for credit and without a single complaint. They just saw a problem and they took ownership. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about these 5 invisible actions. You know, most leaders spend so much time trying to grow themselves, but they accidentally build companies that instantly collapse the very second they step out of the room. To prevent that from happening to you, pick the weakest trait we discussed today and commit to fixing it. And I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative challenge to take action on right now. Look around your life or your business today for a problem that you absolutely did not cause. Will you step up and solve it?